Hello everyone, this is me, Teacher Rika, and today we are going to have a discussion on the topic language of research, campaigns, and advocacies. Our objectives include the following. First, explain the basic techniques in writing campaigns and advocacies. Second, create a specific campaign or advocacy. And third, value one's role as advocates of goodwill by creating an advocacy plan. As a grade 10 student, you are being engaged in content and learning experiences that can help you gain deeper understanding of matters that will help you deal with real-world problems and solutions. In English, this involves understanding and using language to connect with others and creating a lasting impact within and across different disciplines. This lesson focuses on observing and understanding the common language used in the fields of research, campaigns, and advocacies. As you journey through this lesson, you are expected to gain a clear understanding of the language of persuasion and different language features employed when writing in these fields of interest. Language plays an essential role in our lives. More than just serving as a way for us to communicate with one another, language also enables us to inform, entertain, influence, and persuade others. This is usually the case when we engage in various fields of interest like doing research work, campaigning for a specific cause, and supporting an advocacy. While the said fields differ at some extent, one common aspect that can be observed among them is the use of a common language. Research makes use of a formal academic and persuasive language to communicate discussions and present corresponding findings for variables studied. Language greatly matters in research as it enables the researcher to effectively communicate valuable results to his or her target readers. The readers, meanwhile, will be able to trust and make use of these facts and findings, depending on how clearly the researcher explains them in a particular language. In the case of research studies, the language a researcher uses also adds up to how reliable and convincing the research findings can be. For some, understanding the language of research can also mean becoming familiar and acquainted with terminologies usually associated with conducting research studies. These terminologies may include theories, concepts, variables, hypotheses, and samples. It is also vital to understand that research works always makes use of academic and persuasive language since the results and findings obtained from these investigative endeavors contribute to and become part of the existing body of knowledge. On the other hand, campaign and advocacy are two closely related concepts usually seen in the form of speeches, print-based materials, songs, video clips, and informational advertisements, among others. A campaign, usually social or political in nature, is technically defined as a planned set of activities that people carry out to attain a certain goal or objective. A campaign speech, basically, is a well-planned speaking activity that aims to excite, persuade, and/or motivate listeners, convincing them to adhere to the speaker's ideas. Convincing the listeners can be achieved by employing strong and emphasized persuasive language, leaving them with good and impressive points that they can remember. An advocacy, meanwhile, refers to activities that argue, plead, support, or favor a certain cause. Various causes for advocacy usually aim to influence decision-making, especially with issues involving social, political, environmental, and economic perspectives. While advocacy may be similar to campaign in some points, advocacy speeches present strong points that may either support or contradict existing policies and legal mandates on specific topics or issues. Simply put, the element of persuasion is the common factor one may observe in the language used in research, campaigns, and advocacies. While each one differs when it comes to the degree of formality and use of subject-specific terminologies, how each resorts to the use of persuasion as a technique is always notable. Here are some of the language features or language devices usually employed in persuasive writing. First, emotive language. This involves the use of words that evoke emotions and make people feel a certain way. Through the use of words that appeal to the emotion, the writer can sound more convincing. This is a commonly used technique when writing headlines in newspapers or delivering speeches. Next is modal verbs. The use of words that express modality or how likely something is going to happen helps adjust the level of certainty of events to suit arguments. When carefully chosen, these words such as may, might, will, must, shall, can, could, would, and ought to help improve the quality of persuasive writing. We also have involving the reader. This is done through the use of personal pronouns like you, your, we, our, and indicative words like together. Using these words establishes a connection between the author and the reader. This way, the issue is made personal and more important to the reader. We also have rhetorical questions. When we say rhetorical questions, they are not meant to be answered. Instead, they are asked for effect, to illustrate a point, or let the reader think. The use of questions that sometimes state the obvious can convince the reader to agree on the points being presented. We also have using evidence. This involves the use of facts, statistics, or figures, or quotes from experts to highlight the writer's authority and make the arguments presented more convincing. Then we have repetition. This technique involves repeating keywords, phrases, or ideas to appeal to the readers. And the other one is adjectives and adverbs. Using this, carefully selected adjectives and adverbs make it possible for the writer to influence how the readers feel. Next is association. This technique tries to link an object or an idea with something already liked or desired by the target audience, such as wealth, success, pleasure, and security. In other words, you're going to think of a certain topic that you will connect the idea so that your audience can really relate to what you are trying to explain. Then you have bandwagon. This is also commonly used in advertisements, and this persuasion technique makes the audience believe the idea that everyone is doing it or that everyone likes something. Then the last one is all about experts. This means relying on expert advice from trusted people like doctors, scientists, and other professionals for things that the audience do not know. The idea that these experts are risking their credibility to support an object or idea makes the persuasion more effective. So these are just some of the many techniques used in persuasion. It is important to understand that different techniques work for different purposes. There are also several ingredients made for effective advocacy. These include the following. First, the rightness of the cause. You should make sure that your cause is really appropriate and it's really needed, it's really timely. The power of the advocates. The more you have people to work with you, the better. And the thoroughness with which the advocates research the issues, the opposition, and the climate of opinion about the issue in the community. How about the skill in using the advocacy tools available, including the media? Like in our case this time, how well do you know the use of Facebook as a tool for you to upload your cause and advocacies, your campaigns? How about YouTube? How about other platforms like Twitter, and Instagram. Above all, the selection of effective strategies and tactics. How are you going to deliver these things will also be up to you as the advocate of such campaign. You probably already have a pretty good idea of what the issue or problem is. Take note that when you work on a certain campaign or advocacy, make sure that it is relevant to the issue at the moment. Like at this time, we are more on the spread of the coronavirus. We have to lessen the number of getting infected. Therefore, it is important to develop a deeper understanding of the issue, including research to analyze of who has power. Remember, advocacy is about power. Who can influence things that matter. You will need to know where the power of your opponents lies and how you can most effectively influence or confront it. At this point, let's talk about how you will prepare your advocacy campaign outline. First, you're going to conduct an advocacy research. What you will do is to gather initial information about a social problem or issue. This includes beginning research to understand the problem. Next is to define the problem. There are 3 steps that you can do. First, become aware of the issue. Second, refine the problem within the small group or organizational context. And the third is to determine the problem priorities. What you will do next is to develop the mission, goals, and objectives for the campaign. When we say mission, the mission statement tells what the campaign is about. It is a broad statement which provides a general direction for organization or task groups work. Example, what the campaign is about. Is it about healthy families, ending hunger, solving the problem in the community? What particular problem is that? You have to be very specific. Then you have the goals. The goals provide a general direction and commitment to action, but are rarely achieved. Example, to reduce the number of children who are playing outside, especially during curfew hours. What else? You can add more, especially if it talks about common problem in the community that you can identify. Then you have the objectives. Objectives are relevant, attainable, measurable, and time-limited outcomes to be achieved. Is to design the advocacy campaign. Here, we have to determine the community and system changes. Example, new or modified programs, policies, and practices the group hopes to bring about. Include the specific changes. For example, new hiring policy sought by the advocacy campaign. Then the action steps required would mean who will do what by when to bring about the specific changes to be sought. I also added very specifically in this part the following things. Look at this. You have persons benefited. Who are the people whom you target to receive the benefit of the advocacy and campaign? Who are the persons involved would mean who will be working with you in this particular campaign and advocacy. What are your expected results under expected outcomes? And then the venue. Where do you plan to conduct the advocacy and campaign? What is your budget or a certain amount in which you're going to spend to run this advocacy and campaign? What will be the source of your fund? You have to specify it there. Does it come from the office of a certain government? Is it solicited from private individuals? So on and so forth. Success indicators would mean your expected results after this campaign and advocacy is done. They are the quantifiable outcome-based statements you'll use to measure if you're on track to meet your goals or objectives in the campaign and advocacy. Advocacy is an exciting work. You get the pleasure of fighting the good fight, and sometimes the thrill of victory. In order to have that, though, you need to get through all of the day-to-day details and specifics. You'll need to keep an eye on the forest while working on the trees individually. By going through this carefully, you will be better prepared to bring about the changes that matter to your community. Here is an example of an advocacy plan. The title is Mass Vaccination for Southville 5A Residents. The vision or mission is to ensure safety of people in Southville 5A from COVID-19 virus. The objective is to make sure that everyone is fully vaccinated. Actually, you can add more in the objectives, but my objective as an example here is to just make sure that everyone is fully vaccinated. Then the strategy I listed is to coordinate with the barangay and city health council on the schedule of vaccination. It can be a certain age group at a particular day. Example, Monday ages 12 to 19, Tuesday 19 to 30 years old, Wednesday 31 to 60 years old, Thursday 61 years old and above. Take note that you can create your own strategy depending on the title of the activity, the campaign, and the advocacy that you are working on. Then under action plan, I indicated persons benefited such as people of Southville 5A, ages 12 to 18, 19 to senior citizen. Persons involved, these are the people who will be helping me in this campaign and advocacy. I have listed barangay and city health council, barangay and SK councilors, barangay tanod, doctors, nurses, volunteers, and other health-related frontliners. My expected outcome or result is that people will be safe from getting infected of the COVID-19 virus. The venue, it can be, in our case, I listed Southville 5A Elementary School Court. This is the venue nearest to our place where people can be gathered to have the vaccine. Then the budget allocation, this is just an estimate. Take note, it can go beyond what is indicated here. And then the sources of funds, barangay and city health office. And then the success indicator is that 90% of the people will be vaccinated, or 10% is for those with comorbidities. Of course, some of them may not be convinced to have their vaccines right away. Then lower rate of getting infected by COVID-19 virus. So this is an example of an advocacy plan with this template. The challenge now is for you to write on your own. Alright, let me show you again the template. First, think of a title. Your title must be appropriate to the needs of the community. It is something that you'd like to work on for your campaign and advocacy. What is your vision, mission? Your objectives. Do not just limit it to 1 or 2. You can list down as many as you can, at least a maximum of 5. And then what are your strategies or tactics in order to conduct your campaign and advocacy? Then also list your action plan. Who are the persons going to benefit with the advocacy and campaign? Who will be working with you? What are your expected results? Where do you want to conduct the activity? What is your budget? Try to estimate how much you will spend for that particular campaign and advocacy. Where do you want to get, or where are you going to get the funds? Is it solicited? Is it requested with the assistance of the barangay and the city? And what are your success indicators? How would we know that your campaign and advocacy is successful after the implementation? This time, let's talk about how your work will be graded. First, you have content of the campaign and advocacy. It will be given 15 points. Then the relevance of that campaign and advocacy to the community. Is it important for the community? Is it needed? 15 points. Is it informative and timely? 10 points. And also creativity in presenting the campaign and advocacy. That's 10 points with a total of 50 points. Kindly encode this criteria after the presentation of your My VOSA in your file. In as much as possible, have this reflect on the upper right corner of your file. So that's our lesson on language of research, campaigns, and advocacies. I hope you have learned something. If you have questions or clarifications, please feel free to type them in the comment section, and I would be gladly answering them later on when I check my YouTube account. God bless everyone and stay safe.